Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. My name is Randy Eckman. I own Stretch Your Mind Entertainment. For those of you just joining us for the first time, and if you are joining us for the first time, it's probably worth mentioning that this is one of a series of live streams that I'm doing, where I'm chronicling uh, my quest to build the ultimate streaming rig for doing live streams on like in out in the field, out in the wild. So the goal of this project is to create a setup that will allow me to do professional level video broadcasting for other organizations, but with my strappy little one-man band kind of approach to the world. I've had some past streams before talking about why I want to do this, and some of my initial thoughts going into how do you approach doing something like this. And I will probably make mistakes along the way, so we're all gonna learn about this together. But yeah, so that's why we're here. And let me put my phone on vibrate really quick. Sorry. Yeah, so that's why we're here. And I'm hoping that that there's some people out there who are following along. If you did miss previous streams and you want to see where where this has gone thus far, all of the streams are available. I think Facebook, I might have taken one down just to avoid copyright issues with music I was playing, and I've since addressed some of those things. But the rest of them are available. All of my live streams are available on YouTube, on the Stretch Your Mind Entertainment YouTube page, and I usually keep the recordings up for a week on Twitch as well. So though if I'm doing this weekly, about the time that this one would be starting is probably when the previous one will be rolling off of their page. So if you want to watch it on Twitch, you'll just have to, if you miss it the night of a broadcast, you can just watch it sometime in the next week following it, but then Twitch automatically deletes it. And beyond a week, you can go find it on YouTube. I personally am not going back and watching any of those videos to see how they look on any of those sites. So I would appreciate feedback if anyone does go back and watch any of the old archival streams. And let me know if there are any issues, because I have been attempting to record them locally so I can re-upload them if necessary. Yeah. Where we left off, though, was last time we were here, I was experimenting with some different configurations for how to get the stream out of the system, whatever the system happens to be, and up to the internet in the presence of a significant data rate challenge. So if you are trying to live stream on site at some venue, a lot of places have very unreliable internet. So even with an Ethernet connection at something like a conference center in a hotel or something like that, often that connection is generally not going to be very stable. There's often throttling, and even when there's not, it's just the nature of having a very large network that's kind of open to the whole world, and those tend to not always be the best sources for getting an internet connection. So despite the best efforts and best intentions of these organizations, it's just very difficult. So I know that the venues that I have in mind for some of my clients that I want to target, the venues that I think that they will be intending to, say, do their performances or events and stuff like that, tend to have very bad internet, because I've been to these places and tried to use the internet before. And so I need to have a bulletproof solution that doesn't rely on having a good internet connection from the venue. So I need to be able to do full HD quality streams without any connection to the ground, essentially. And so last week I attempted to do the entire stream entirely on cellular data. And so what I had done was I have I'm using a hardware encoder to get the stream out of my, here, I can, let me show you what my setup is, just to review again really quickly. Sorry for if anyone is watching that has seen the previous streams. There's a little bit of recapping here, but I have an ATEM SDI Pro ISO as my switcher, video switcher. I'm also currently using it for some of the audio mixing, but a lot of the heavy lifting is really done by a separate dedicated board I have over here. But most of the video and audio ultimately is getting put together in this box, and then the output of this box is going into a Teradek Video Go, which is like a commercial grade, a higher end hardware encoder that the real killer feature of this specific model is that you can have up to 7 different internet connections that it will distribute your signal out across. And so if you have very weak bandwidth on all of them, but in aggregate, if you add it all up, you can get the bandwidth that you need for the bit rate that you want for your stream, then this is a solution to that. And so in the presence of some of these venues that might have very poor quality internet and you do have to rely entirely on cell signals, well, cell signals can also be unreliable as well. And so you want to try to have multiple different cellular signals that you can access, and even maybe from different providers, so you aren't locked to one particular network if, say, T-Mobile goes down or something like that. And so the way that I did the stream last week was I did them entirely with these hotspots. This one here is they're both from a company called NCGo, but the name is in very, very fine print underneath because they're the common manufacturer for both the flagship hotspots that are used by both T-Mobile and Verizon. And so this is the T-Mobile one. It's the M2000 model, and then I have the M2100 as well, which is from Verizon. And so these are both, they support 5G. Oh, this one doesn't say 5G. The other one says 5G on the back. They can support 5G on both of their respective networks, depending on which SIM card I have in it. And so last week I did the entire stream solely on using these two hotspots. And as far as I could tell from just watching the graphs that I have over here on another screen, it looked to me like the signal stayed very stable the entire time. And I also was occasionally going back and checking on Facebook and YouTube to just see how it was looking. And as far as I could tell, everything looked good. So I'm hoping that that's a good solid place to start on the cell problem. Now, the issue that we have with considering this prospect is the cost of such an endeavor. If you are trying to do an entire HD live stream entirely with cellular connection, then you're at the whims of your ability to pay for cellular network access, right? And so What I actually, for the T-Mobile hotspot, I have in there currently a prepaid SIM card that is an internet-only plan from T-Mobile. And for that, for last week, I had... Hi, Craig. Hi, BB. Craig wants to join the stream. And so for last week, for the T-Mobile plan, I put, I have that plan configured right now for 2 gigabytes, and then I also added a 1 day. Oh gosh, what do they call them? Essentially like you get like a 1 gigabyte upper. Gosh, what's the word I'm looking for though? Day pass. Data day pass. And so I added 1 gigabytes for a total of 3 gigabytes of data, cellular data that I had available to me through T-Mobile. From the Verizon, that's currently something that I have connected to my personal data plan, my personal cell phone, so not associated with my business at all. And my family has a fairly large pool of data on our plan for my entire family, because we all share one family plan with Verizon. And we often have way more data than we actually consume, and the plan rolls over. And so I'm constantly just accumulating data, and so I don't mind occasionally to maybe skim a little bit of my personal cell service for my business stuff for doing this. So I had the Verizon and the T-Mobile modems plugged, or hotspots. Technically, they're hotspots, not modems. Well, they have modems, whatever. We don't need to get into the semantics of this. The hotspots. So I had those 2 hotspots plugged into the Teradek and ran the entire stream. Now, when I got towards the end of the evening, I started running into issues. And that was because towards... Don't do it. No, Craig. Good boy. You can come over here and you can be on my lap, but you cannot be on this table. Okay? Oh, he's just going to pout over there in the corner. That's fine. Just stare at me. I'm just going to wait for his move to make his move again later. You know what? Hold on. There's a piano bench over here that is tempting him. Here. I have to figure out how to be smarter than the cat. Okay. It's because he knows how to go from the table to the piano and vice versa, and then he kind of can hop between these things and then hop over here onto this table, and he's not allowed on this table. So I'm trying to move, at least while I'm doing the stream, move anything that might get him access to this table away. But anyway, so I was explaining, so for the cellular connections, okay, yeah. So towards the end of the evening, I was having trouble with, I started, like, out of the corner of my eye, I started seeing the plots dipping very, very low in terms of the bit rate. And it turns out it's because I hit the end of my data cap from T-Mobile. I had used up the entire 3 gigabytes. The 2 gigabytes that I had for the whole month for this plan, well, at least the plan that I have prepaid for this month, and the 1 gigabyte day pass that I had on top of that. I used all 3 gigabytes during the stream, and so in the end, I conceded and I plugged in my home Ethernet port that I had ready, sitting next to the box, so I could plug it in if I ran into issues. And so I did end up using the wired connection in conjunction with the Verizon hotspot, which was still going strong. to finish out the stream. So when we concluded, after that stream, I spent some time earlier this week trying to ponder what does this mean? What are the implications of cellular signal and the expense of that on being able to support doing these kinds of events and these kinds of streams? Because it's going to be ultimately some sort of expense to me as a business, and I probably can and will pass on some of that to the cost as part of like my quotes with clients. So some of that burden can be passed on, but ultimately, like right now where I am, I don't have income coming in through the business because I don't currently have any clients at the moment. But that's why we're trying to work this, get this going sooner rather than later, and try to get some clients out there so we can try to recoup some of these costs. But anyway, so yeah, all of this got me thinking about what is the most affordable way and effective way. What's the optimal way? What is that optimization problem of the cheapest way to do these kinds of streams affordably using an entirely cellular connection? And so that got me down a pretty deep rabbit hole, but I got some really interesting data that I wanted to maybe share with you guys about what this all means. So hold on one second while I get myself configured here. So we'll start with is that right? Okay. Yes. All right. So let me share my screen with everyone. Oh, I hit the wrong button on. Damn it. I'm still kind of getting used to this setup. It's a little different than like what I intend to do for my real deal. This is the left. So, okay. Great. I'll make this a little bit bigger. There we go. So you guys can see what I'm looking at. So I put together this spreadsheet that would try to help me estimate my data needs for doing a stream, and then how does that translate into different mobile plans that are available currently, at least as of earlier this week from my research. So the inputs are up here at the top. The video bitrate, I'm currently doing HD streams with 1080p, and I'm doing them at 5 megabits per second. What I'm actually doing is having the stream coming out of the Teradek using H.265. I talked about this on a previous stream about the Teradek service that they have called Core, that actually takes all the different separate cell signals and reintegrates them into a coherent video stream that then gets forward onto Restream and then onto the other streaming services. And so this box can support doing H.265 streams. But H.265 is not a format that's supported natively by most of the other streaming services, and especially because I am specifically using Restream, Restream.io as the service to then take the signal that comes out of Core and split it out 3 ways to Facebook, to Twitch, and to YouTube. And using the Restream service, their service, as far as I can tell, only supports RTMP connections with H.264, which is limiting. So most streaming services, the connection that you use is RTMP. I think it stands for like real-time media protocol, Somebody will have to fact check me on that. But that's the RTMP. That's the service. That's the signal format that's used when most people are live streaming, as the go between when you send the video to these services. It's often coming in through RTMP. But RTMP was originally developed as a data format for Adobe Flash. And so, as most people who grew up in my generation, we grew up in the Flash cartoon era with like Albino Black Sheep and those sorts of fun websites with all the Flash animations and stuff. And so Adobe Flash, but Adobe no longer develops, maintains Flash at all. And when they abandoned Flash, they abandoned the RTMP protocol. And because it's a proprietary format, like nobody else could just take it and adjust it as needed. And so basically the format that's used for RTMP is kind of frozen in time now, and it doesn't support newer forms of compression or higher resolutions and stuff like that. And so like it will never support 4K, even if we had the hardware and whatnot to support it. Just it natively won't support doing that the way that the signal is constructed. So anyway, so that and also the type of compression that it uses is called H.264. And so the most common, so kind of going back again, the most common way that video data is distributed to services is using an RTMP signal carrying video that is compressed using H.264. Now, H.264 is a good compression method that served us all well for many, many, many years. However, you can do better in terms of compression. It was, that was an algorithm developed from quite a while ago at this point, and so in the new era of HD and 4K video signals and whatnot, somebody along the way came up with a more efficient protocol for compressing, or a more efficient method for compressing video, and that new version was an improvement on H.264, and so they just incremented the number, and it's called H.265. So H.265 is a much more efficient, and by much more I mean like it will literally cut the size of your video in half or more. And so using H.265 compression, you can send, especially for somebody like me who's really trying to get by with the minimum data usage on solely cellular connections, you want to have as little bandwidth as possible to get the video signal out. So having that higher compression will allow you to better take advantage of cellular signals. So long story short, I have my box, my video is outputting a signal. I don't actually know what the underlying signal that it uses for. So the outputs, when it outputs H.264, I'm pretty sure it's just sending it to the servers using RTMP maybe. I don't know what it's actually doing under the hood, but somehow it's able to get H.265 video data to their core website, the Teradek core as they call it, and that's the service that will take all the different cell signals and combine them together. So however they do that magically behind the scenes, you're able to send H.265 data to core. However, you then have to convert that signal back to, or I guess in this case it was never in H.264 because I'm just natively going straight to H.265 here on my table in the room. You have to then convert it to H.264 in order to send it to Restream because it's doing that connection over RTMP, which only supports H.264. So That's where you need to use a service like Core to take all the cell signals, combine them, and then also convert the video to the new format. So it used to be up until actually the end of last year, towards the end of last year, that it was an additional fee if you were doing that transcoding, if you were converting something from H.265 down to H.264 in order to send it out to streaming services. The Teradek would actually charge an extra fee for doing that conversion. And so I had previously been on some of my earlier streams when I had talked about some of this stuff. I'd been very concerned about. Here, I'll just go back to my face for a minute while I'm still rambling. I had. Oh, sorry. Let me just turn this down just a little bit. Okay. Okay. I had previously been concerned about that extra fee. And so what I was trying to do was just use H.264, but I was running into issues with, on like my very first stream, people were talking about the signal being unstable. And there's a number of reasons that was happening that I've since, tracked down, and I think I understand why it was happening. But I think a lot of it had to do with, I was trying to use H.264, which is, the video signal is still very, very big, and it takes a lot of data. And if you don't have the bandwidth to push that much video data through, then you're limited, and then you can't do something like 1080p signal with the very limited bandwidth that I'm making available to the box. So I didn't really have much of a choice. But then this past week, when I started looking into all of this stuff a little bit more, trying to understand costs and like how the data, the bandwidth, things like that, and try to do those cost trade-offs, trade studies, I discovered that actually they had changed the pricing system, and I even remember getting the email about this, and I guess at the time it was before I was really taking the idea seriously of trying to get this stream together, but they changed their pricing model, and so now they no longer charge that extra fee for doing the transcoding, as they call it, the converting the signal from 6.5 to 6.4, which is amazing. That's awesome. And so that saves a ton of money that I had previously been concerned about. I would have to budget for that extra money. They do make up for that in different ways, and so it's definitely not net zero. There is cost savings here, but some of the way that they're doing the pricing is a little different than what they had done before, and so some of the other stuff is a little more expensive than it was before, but at least now you don't have to pay for the transcoding service, which is awesome. So that opens up the floodgates on, yes, we can definitely do H.265 coming out of this, and I don't have to worry about paying for the extra fee. So that means that I can do HD 1080p video coming out of the box with H.265, I think I already said that, and have it, I can give it a little bit smaller data rate than you would normally historically have needed to do for a full 1080p video, where you'd need something more like 8 megabits per second or something to pull that off. Now you can get by with 5 or maybe even 3 megabits per second. So I went the middle ground and decided that I wanted to go with 5 megabits was the data rate that I was going to settle on. Even though I'm using the H.265, I probably don't need that much to send this data, but I wanted to make sure that I had it available to me if I really needed it, if I really started seeing that video quality was suffering. So I wanted to be conservative and kind of on the higher end here, so that I know that this will get me close to the ballpark, but it's definitely on the higher side. So there are ways that I can, I can make adjustments to this budget as needed to help me um, cut costs if I still need to do that to some extent. So anyway, so that gets us the video bit rate of 5 megabits per second. Audio is of utmost importance to me, and so the audio bit rate is maxed out at 256. That's just the maximum that this box will support. I'm not sure if the protocols, even some of the newer, fancier protocols, even support higher bit rates than that. But yeah, 250. I often historically would use 192, and it's almost indistinguishable, the difference between 192 kilobits per second and 256. You'd have to really be an audiophile or somebody otherwise very picky with a very sensitive ear to even hear those differences. But whatever, we're going to splurge. We're going to go 256. And then this stream usually lasts about 2.5 hours. In practice, I think probably most of the events that I might be streaming out in the real world probably are going to be shorter than 2.5 hours. And part of the new pricing model is, of course, as soon as you turn the Teradek box on, it starts charging. It starts the clock, the taxi cab meter. So, but you have to turn the box on to like make sure that you got the signal, and then make sure you've got good connection, and then check out your video stream on all the different services and everything before you start the event. And so there is some amount of video streaming that you'll have to do before, and maybe a little bit on the back end and after the stream starts and ends. And so anyway, even on a shorter event, I anticipate that probably if I'm on site for I don't see a scenario where I would probably need I would probably use most of the 2.5 hours. And if it's definitely a longer event, I can probably I'm getting part of this whole exercise of me doing these streams is to get practice on getting this stuff running and set up and going. And so I might be able to streamline doing this. And so I can reduce the amount of time that I get charged by this by waiting to the last minute, turn the box on, it starts charging me money, and then go check everything out very quickly, get the signal up and running, and then get the show started. So there might be ways to shave that off, but I think on average, probably I should assume that my events will be about 2.5 hours. In this case, for right now, because I'm wanting to sort of mimic what I actually did the other night, we'll just do one stream. We'll just look at one stream. So I put for streams per month right now, we'll just make this one. And then cellular devices, I have this set as 2 because that's what I did last week. So I had 2 cellular devices. I had the 2 hotspots that were plugged into the USB ports on the Teradek. I removed the built-in the modems that came with it, and instead used my hotspots hard-lined in to tether to the box. And so yeah, I had 2 cellular devices. And the cost that Teradek essentially charges you is about $3 an hour. So those are the inputs to the model, of course. So you have to calculate how much time, if I'm looking at what is my monthly costs going to be, right? So you have to look at how much time in total will all of the streams add up to, because Teradek, of course, charges you by the amount of time that you are connected to the service in a month. So if this were, if I made this 2, then obviously I would have 2 streams that are both 2.5 hours of time that I would be using the server. And so for the billing purposes, it's basically 5 hours. They don't care if it's 5 continuous hours of streaming or broken up into 5 different 1 hour sessions, but whatever. So anyway, we'll look at just one because I just want to look at what happened last week. So I convert that to seconds because I use seconds later. And then I have essentially for the stream that I ran last week, my cost for using the Teradek service would have been $7 and 48 cents for that one stream. So it's not cheap, but I mean, less than $10 isn't terrible. So livable. And at the rate that we're going, if well, if I did only one stream a month, so only 12 streams in total in a year, that would be about you know, 89 $89 a year. So like if we come up here and I make this four, you know, on average of roughly 4 streams a month, then that's, you know, $360 in total for using the Teradek service. So that's not cheap either. But I think that where we are right now, that's the cost of doing business with the way that I am setting this up, where I don't want to rely on a single internet connection. I think I don't have much choice but to rely on a service like this. Are there ways that I can get away from this service to save money? Yes. Do I want to look into those right now? No. I did look into it a little bit over the weekend, though, and so I did some of the research on this, though, just to see what it would what would be required. There is a way. Essentially, I found a guy on the internet who built his own box like what the Teradek does by himself, and wrote his own code to do the like splitting up the data to different cell signals, and then he had built his own server, or maybe he was using like AWS or something to run this software to reconstruct the signal again, kind of like what Teradek does. And so he had written his own software, so then he could run his own software and then would only have to pay for the cell signal and then pay for the server costs, which if you had a reliable on-site server that was capable of doing all that processing, like I have a web server in my house. If I had a good enough internet connection that I trusted it to use for doing this kind of data, like the reassembling the signals and relaying the stream back to different services, I could just do that from here. The technology bit is not the issue here. It's the infrastructure at my house. I've ranted about my internet now at my house multiple times on multiple streams, so we're not going to get into that right now. But that's a thing. So it's possible. The guy who did this, though, he since has started his own company selling boxes like the Teradek using his software that he developed. However, nothing ever dies on the internet and everything is forever. And so I really had to do some very, very deep searching on Google. But I finally found somebody had archived off a copy of this guy's code before he took it off of GitHub. And so I was able to get a copy of his code, and I've saved it off for myself to look into later. But I didn't want to distract from the momentum that we have on this project, and it's a distraction on the goals at hand, because I already own the Teradek box. I've already paid for this hardware. That's a sunk cost, essentially. Yes, I could sell it used, but for all intents and purposes, we'll assume that this is sunk costs, and I'm not going to get into like building your own thing and running your own software for now. Although that would be significant cost savings. Okay, so, but state of the world where it is right now, this is essentially what I would have to pay. Okay, so let me go back to, though, just one stream. So this last stream, I haven't seen the official bill yet, of course. This is all just an estimate, but I think that this is probably consistent based on the data I have from bills from Teradek from previous streams and experimentation attempts and stuff like that. This is on the ballpark of what I should expect. I think this is a reasonable number. So 748. Okay. So total bit rate, you do have to, when you do a stream and you set it to 5, megabits per second, usually that stream that when streaming services talk about their bit rates, they're almost always only referring to the video bit rate. Actually, they kind of ignore the audio contribution, and so when you say, "Oh, I'm doing a stream at 5 megabits per second," well, in reality, it's 5 megabits for the video plus, whatever amount of bits that you're using for the audio. So you have to add these two numbers if you're trying to get a realistic estimate on like how much data are you consuming on a cell signal. So we add those together. That gets us our bit rate. And then, of course, this is bits. And there are 8 bits in a byte. So it's not megabytes per second. It's megabits per second, which is how usually like the streaming services and stuff report, and the compression algorithms and stuff. They talk usually in terms of bit rate. And I think this is a big source of confusion for, just casual consumers too, when they are shopping for internet service, if they don't know any better, and they'll see like, oh, well, this service is offering 25 megabits per second, and I think people think in their brain, oh, 25 megabytes. Oh, I didn't know anyone was watching. All right, well, hey, Dad, go get back to work. But so megabytes, not the same as megabits. So a megabyte is 8 times as large as a megabit. So if your internet service is 25 megabits per second, then you actually have to divide that number by 8 to get how many megabytes you're talking about. So anyway, so we divide everything by 8 to get the byte rate. Now, this is where there's more fun. So oftentimes when you are, so like when you're on your computer and the computer says that this file is, 2 megabytes or it's 3 gigabytes or something like that. Those numbers that are being reported by the computer in terms of true usage are using what are called binary measurements, binary rates. And so this means that when you go from, so like 1 byte, right, is 8 bits, but so you have 1 byte, and then a kilobyte is 1024 times, or there are 1024 bytes in a kilobyte. 1024. That is a binary number. A binary number is a multiple of 2. Or it's like an exponential number of 2. So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024. 512 times 2 is 1024. So you just keep multiplying 2 by itself. So they basically found the closest binary number to 1,000 so that they could use similar naming schemes to like a kilometer. A kilometer is 1,000 meters, right? And so the idea was they wanted to find a number that, that was close to 1,000, so that they could call it a kilobyte. And so that's where we are today. If you are using your computer, and the computer, if your operating system, Windows, Linux, Mac, on your machine, when it says that something is so many kilobytes, it is 1024. That is the number that's using as the conversion factor. However, I already referenced, if you have a kilometer, right? A kilometer is 1,000 meters. Usually, metric prefixes that you use in like the metric system for like centimeters and things like that, they're in powers of 10. They're multiples of 10. And so a metric kilobyte is exactly 1,000 bytes, not the 1024 number. This is why when you buy hard drives, flash drives, memory or whatever, well, maybe not so much memory, but definitely storage. It's definitely a thing with storage. When people buy drives, the number that you'll see on the package often is larger than the number that you'll see when you plug it into your computer. And people always feel like they're getting gypped. And I mean, in a way they are. But the thing is that when companies are trying to sell you storage, they are taking advantage of the fact that this difference in conversion factor between what the computer is actually using and what people think the number means, they're taking advantage of the fact that there are two different definitions of the kilobyte, two different definitions of the gigabyte, etc., etc. And so when they sell you a drive that is, 10 gigabytes or whatever, in reality, it's 10 metric gigabytes. And so you have to then convert those to binary gigabytes to get their actual equivalent, using, what the computer itself would report. So it's a big pain in the butt, and it's just a fact of the world that we live in right now, at least, that you have to live by the rules that the tech companies play by, because that's how they make their money. So anyway, so I recorded here. Now we start to convert these numbers into their metric and binary equivalents, and I am guessing that just like the other tech companies, though, that your cell phone company is also going to want to choose the definition that is more advantageous to them, the one that makes them the most money. And services, like the cell services, are always actively trying to discourage you from using their network and using their data, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's a whole thing that we don't need to get into here. But they're it's like an economic thing. They're trying to provide incentives to not use their network, or disincentives and things like that. So it's like a tax, essentially. So the cell services depend, and it really depends on which cell network you're talking to. They don't all, some of them are good. Some of them actually do measure it with the binary definition, that is the conventional one that most people are using day in and day out, whether or not they realize it. And then there are definitely the others that are doing the other one. So in order to be conservative and estimate the most cost, so if I'm trying to figure out how much cell signal, if I'm getting a cell phone plan, I'm trying to figure out how much data do I need. I probably need to bookkeep using the worst case number, which is going to always be the metric number. So we're going to convert our stream to try to figure out the actual size of our streaming data in this metric number, and get that number, that size of the video data in total that's going to go out over the cell network, in metric units. So a single 2.5 hour stream at 5 megabits per second video, 256 kilobits per second audio is going to actually be 5.9 gigabytes, metric gigabytes. And so if I were to, I've noticed that it seems like, yes, there's some amount of weighting that clearly the Teradek box is doing. So it's constantly doing some sort of speed test while the stream is going on. And so it can figure out that one signal has a faster data rate, has more bandwidth than a different one. And it will tend to put more data through that one. But it does not always do that. And it does try to just evenly weight everything in it. And so if everything is at least on the same order of magnitude in terms of signal rate, in terms of cell signal quality or whatever, it's going to just try to split it all out evenly. So I'm estimating, and of course this is actually in practice going to vary, but on average, it probably will try to evenly divide among all of your cell signals. So that makes it, in this case, for what we did last week, where between two cell signals, this stream would have been 2.9 gigabytes per cell signal. Well, but I already said that for my T-Mobile, I had 3 gigabytes on the plan. But as I mentioned before, the stream that I actually do here is about 2.5 hours, and it usually takes me 30 minutes to get everything set up and running before the stream starts. So I start the clock. In this case, the stream would have actually been 3 hours, right? Because I had the 30 minutes at the beginning, and then I tried to stream for 2.5 hours. Now we see the problem, because yes, I have not actually started the stream on Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. It's still just, but the data has to get out of the Teradek box to the server to test all the signals and get everything set up before you actually click go. And it uses data to do that. And so not only do you have to pay for Teradek on your setup time, you also have to protect for the cell signal that you're going to use during that time while you're just getting things set up and before you even actually start the event. So in this case, this is what happened. It was just slightly, ever so slightly over 3.5, just over 3 gigabytes of data per cell signal. And so I hit the 3 on the T-Mobile. They cut me off from the network, and then I had to use the Ethernet to kind of recover from there. And when I went and looked on the Verizon side at the end of the night, it said that I had used about 3.5 gigabytes of my cell data, maybe a little bit more, because the stats, my Verizon signal was actually better than my stupid home internet. I hate so much. And so it actually was tending to wait putting the video on the Verizon network over using my Ethernet connection directly to the cable modem. Ugh. So I think it ended up being a little more closer to 4. But yeah, so this at least gives us a good ballpark estimate of what this is going to cost and what our data needs are going to be. So let me set this back to 2.5 though, because yeah, I'm using data about my stream that I'm doing here talking to you to kind of calibrate this model. But ultimately, again, in the real world, I think that probably I would have maybe a half hour set up before a 2-hour event. And so then in practice, this is the kind of stream that I would have. So now we have a couple different scenarios that we can consider. So if I'm only doing 1 2.5 hour event and I only have 2 cellular devices, I have to make sure that I have 2 devices that I have to pay for whatever plan I have for the services, and I have to make sure that that plan that I have with the service has enough data that I would need for the month. So in this case, for 2 devices with only 1 stream a month, I could get by with 3 gigabytes if I literally only use 2.5 hours. Again, if I have any additional setup time that knocks me over 3, I'm out. And it's bad. It would be a bad time to do that in the middle of a real stream for a client. So like a paying client. So that would be bad. So you're going to want a little bit of buffer on there on top of what your actual stream needs are probably going to be. So in this case, yeah, I could get a 3. I might go up to a 4 per 4 gigabyte plan, but like nobody really has data plans like that. I think I did a lot of research into all the different mobile plans that are out there for both data only, because in this case, I don't really need, call and text and stuff like that. So even if I physically was using cell phones that I if I bought used cell phones on eBay or, some other sketchy place, and only use the data bit of it, I could get by with just using a data plan on the cell phone. So you don't need a full up phone plan, and sometimes you can save money that way. But even then, only looking at like mobile hotspot or tablet plans and things like that, often the best I could find was like 5 gigabyte plans. That was really the smallest that anyone would go, except T-Mobile would go a little bit smaller. And so T-Mobile that's why I have that extra SIM card for T-Mobile, because of that flexibility of their plans, where you can go down to having a plan of only 500 megabytes per month. Nobody in their right mind in practice is actually only using 500 megabytes in a month. But you can get that plan. And I did have that plan before, previously, basically just to kind of keep my SIM card alive. I was paying the cheapest rate for the smallest, cheapest plan that they had, so that I didn't lose my SIM card and I didn't lose my account. So that is more or less, I think, the only practical use for that plan that from T-Mobile. But anyway, so most plans, really your only options are 5 gigabytes or more, right? And the more gigabytes you have on the plan, the more expensive the plan is, but often the price per gigabyte goes down. So there's advantages to buying your data in bulk, but if you don't need that, so there's trade-offs to do. So I said, again, like, okay, so what's the worst case scenario here, where I only get the cheapest plans available from each service, and assuming it's 5 gigabytes, right? So our target is we need to get this number down to 5 gigabytes or less. Currently, with only one stream per month, that's doable. Do I think that... will I only have one stream per month once I have paying clients, if I don't include the streams that I'm doing here? Maybe, but I mean, ideally I would like to get to a point where I have, multiple clients. But I think even then, even if I had a steady stream of projects and clients and stuff for my own personal sanity and protecting for my own personal time, I think I probably would only take about 2 gigs in a month. So let's make this number 2. All right, you can see we're already over 5, so we can't get away with doing only 2 cellular devices. We need at least 3. But that's better anyway, because there's 3 major cellular networks. Of course, you have your T-Mobile network, you have Verizon, you have AT&T. So as I said, it's probably better if you can get your signal spread out across multiple networks. So ideally, I would like to have at least 1 from each network anyway. So let's start with 3 cellular devices, only doing 2 streams per month, right? So this is the amount of data that I would need. Yeah. So there you go. You can also see, yeah, so the teradeck cost in this case for 2 streams is going to be double what we had before. So it's $14.95, goes up to $179.40 a year for only 2 streams a month. Now, what I'm doing right now is a weekly stream, right? And the month of September has 5 weeks in it. And often these plans bill in 30-day blocks. Regardless of whether or not the calendar month actually only has 30 days, they tend to only bill you in 30-month blocks anyway. And so there's still, 30 divided by 7 is going to be more than 4. So even if you only considered a perfect world where every month was exactly 30 days, you still have the possibility of having weeks, months with 5 weeks if you get lucky. So let's assume that we did do something weekly, though. So we'll take this up to 5 streams per month. Well, now 3 is not going to be enough because it's going to cost you about 10 gigabytes per cell signal. And if you really wanted to get the true average here, you could make this so there are 52 weeks in a year. That's always true. And then we could divide it by 12. So on average, a month has 4.3. But that's still significantly more than 5 gigabytes, right? And so we have to increase this number by some amount. So let's try 4, right? That gets us closer. 5 is still not quite enough. 6 is the magic number, right? So even if we go up to a full 5 streams, that It doesn't give us much margin, but our monthly data per service is under 5. And I think that obviously, since it's impossible for every month to always have 5 uh, in them, I think it's unlikely that you there might be like a month if you actually were concerned about this and I actually had, you know, clients every single week in a 5-week month, then then maybe I would get like I could just like get a day pass, or increase the plan for 1 month or something like that. They have allowance, I think is the word I was looking for earlier, but you can buy like extra data allowances on top of your baseline plan usually. So in this case, you need 6 devices, which is also convenient because, again, we have 3 networks. And that allows us to have a nice even split of you can have 2 devices per network. So 6 cellular devices is probably the sweet spot if we're going to look at this worst case scenario. If you're only doing 2 streams a month, again, it's very serious overkill. But, and you can't get away with just 3. So it's how ambitious do I want to be from a business perspective? So we'll examine all of these different scenarios a little more in depth after the break. I am over time a little bit here. I think I'd mentioned before, I'm trying to go in hour blocks and then take a short break. So yeah, let's take a break, and when we come back, I'll talk about all the different scenarios and different permutations and the cost trades happening there. And then I won't spend too much more time on it, and then we can get into talking about the hardware, the fun stuff. So I will see everyone again here in a bit. So take a break. See you soon. All right. Hello, everyone. We're back. Um, where did Craig go? Oh, I see him. Oh, he's hiding. He's hiding over here. Let me get his treats. Oh, now you're gonna come join the party. I'm gonna put it up here. He's very confused because I just told him not to be on the table. I know. So, yeah, I'm that kind of person. Come here, baby. Don't you want the treats? Ah, now he's coming. Oh, God, your calls are so short. Oh, here. Hi, baby. You're such a good boy. No, that's a good Craig. You can say hi to everybody? You gonna say hi? He's like, no, there's no more treats. I don't care about this anymore. Hi. Hi, sweet baby. As long as you stay on this table, you're okay. He still finds ways to get in trouble. He's fascinated with my little table thing over here where I have the ATEM set up. He's always very curious. He loves like holes. I mean, I think that maybe it's just a cat thing in general, but like he sees that like there's a gap there and he needs to like put his paws in there. But I think he did that during the last stream and it actually ended up messing up my my hard drive recording. I could not figure out what happened and I couldn't recover it without like just restarting the ATEM. But when I restarted, everything seemed to work fine. So I just blame Craig. I'm not willing to say at this point that it's something wrong with the hard drive that I was doing. But anyway, that's Craig. So he says hi, everyone. Where'd he go? Oh, he's sitting over here behind me. You can't really see him, though. He's in the dark, hiding under the table. Anyway. All right, well, we're back. We're back from the break. So before the break, I was talking about, the costs of different configurations of cell signals. And let's take a look at what options we have available to us at the 5 gigabyte rate. So I'm going to share my screen again so you can see what's going on here. So in my big spreadsheet. So I went out and did quite a bit of research on what different plans are out there, either from the native networks plans themselves or from their MVNOs. I can't recall what that actually stands for, but it's, the Mint, the like the Boost Mobile and those sorts of services, the ones that aren't, they like rent time on the network from the big actual cell phone networks. So the big three, of course, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. Those are there's only 3 networks in the US, and those are the 3 networks. There's actually a 4th. It was the Sprint network. But since they've merged, got bought out, I don't know how that works. But somehow that's like being integrated with T-Mobile, and I don't think that integration, I mean, maybe at this point is complete because it's been a few years now, but depending on the source that you look at, sometimes people still claim that there's like a separate Sprint network. But the way of the future is that it's going to all just consolidate down to the big 3 networks. So anyone who's not one of those 3 companies is renting time on somebody else's network. And so those other companies that rent out time on other networks that they don't own themselves. Are called MVNOs. So anyway, so I wanted to consider like all the different plans that I could find out there that had maybe 5 gigabytes. I can't really make this much bigger because it's gonna block things with my face, or I guess I could just hide my face. So we'll just go full screen on this spreadsheet, and then I'll make the text a little bit bigger here. So I was trying to figure out different configurations of data plans that are out there. So I did look at the plans that I could find that were less than 2 gigabytes, or less than 5 gigabytes, but I didn't give them any real serious consideration for a number of reasons that we kind of talked about before. I think it would just be better and easier to just get 5 gigabyte plans everywhere. So those are the real true budget options if I want to only do 1 or 2 streams. Or one stream, I guess, really, with cell data, that is. I guess I could do more streams than that. I just won't have the data to support doing it with cell signal, right? So it would have to be, I just have to trust what I have at my disposal. So anyway, so I looked at different plans. So they're kind of color coded on the left here. They're color coded by the network that they use, with a couple notable exceptions. So there's like this teal color is AT&T, the pink is T-Mobile, and then this like reddish color is Verizon, which doesn't really show up that well on the screen, I realize now. I didn't want to do bright red because I reserved like the real red for down here, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there's a company called US Mobile that does actually offer plans that work on both Verizon and T-Mobile. So their plan can work on either network. You have to pick one. You have to pick one or the other, but they offer services on either network. So, and it's the same price either way through their plans. So I gave them kind of a weird orangish color because it's kind of in between the pink and the red for T-Mobile and Verizon. Okay, whatever. So that's the color coding over here. So I originally started with all of the rows highlighted by those colors. And then as I went through one by one and eliminated them for different reasons, I would like mark them out gray. So, and I kept, the labels over here on the left with their coloring just so I would know, what the colors originally were. But on the right here, this is all the numbers that we actually care about. And so if it's a light gray, it's a plan that is significantly less than 5 gigabytes. Anything that is either significantly more than 5 gigabytes as the smallest plan that I could find, or otherwise, I originally had considered, then that one was a dark gray because yes, it's an option, but there's the trade-off, right? And so if I really want to focus on the 5 gigabyte, I'm going to just eliminate, kind of as a ground rule, anything that's significantly more than 5 gigabytes. I thought that Craig was doing something else, getting into trouble. So there's a couple exceptions up here that I did ground rule out also. I originally was looking at this service called Mobile X, is these dark gray rows that are up here. So Mobile X is a really interesting service because they kind of have like a build your own cell plan, which is really cool, a really cool idea, in that you tell them each month, I want this many gigabytes, I want unlimited talk and text, or I don't. Maybe you want a cheaper plan that you only have 500 texts a month or whatever. And so you can adjust all the parameters and you pick them. Like they have some prepackaged ones, but mostly they try to filter people towards these custom plans. And then the idea is that over time, they'll actually have AI integrated into their system, and so each month it will analyze the usage that you had from the past month, the previous months, and try to suggest, or you could just throw up your hands and give the full power to the AI and just let it make the changes. But if you don't then it will suggest to you changes that you can make to your plan to save money, to save data, and things like that. That's a really, really cool idea. However, the way that their system is set up is all of their signals go through a central service that they run themselves, which is not for, if I were looking for a plan for my personal cell phone usage, if I wasn't happy with the service that I already have, of course, I would totally look into this. This is awesome and a really great way to save money. But for what we're trying to do, where I need to make sure that the video signals are all somewhat arriving at the same time at the other end of the pipe, where, on the Teradek side, when it gets the signal from the box, they need to kind of all arrive at roughly the same time. And there are some significant issues with their specific setup, because they're using their own custom routing system for all of the data on the Mobile X platform. And it's so far, this service literally just started in February, which is also when Craig was born. So Craig and Mobile X are the same age. Oh, he's about to get into something, I think. Gotta keep an eye on this one. He's mostly a good cat, but I think he mostly gets into trouble when I'm here. Maybe it's because he knows, like, I'm going to watch over him and make sure that he doesn't do anything really stupid. Because I have security cameras, right? And so I watch him during the day, and he mostly just sits on the, sits around and just chills during the day. So when I come home at night, that's when he gets wild and decides to be adventurous. So anyway, so Mobile X, a really cool service, and but it's very young, and their custom routing thing probably is concerning because of the reports that I've seen on Reddit and a few other places where people have gotten their service and have some experience with it. The way that they've got their network set up now is, yes, they're still using the Verizon network, but like, no matter what you do, all of the data that you use on the Verizon network, it goes through Verizon's tower, and instead of just going straight out to the internet, it's routing first. It's instead going from the tower to Mobile X's like data center before, and so it adds this extra layer of complexity that makes the signal a little bit slower, and during peak times, like, their system isn't quite set up to scale yet either. So like, people have reported some significant like data slowdowns and stuff, not necessarily throttling, but it slows down. So they have, however, negotiated, so Mobile X, even though they are not a Verizon proper service, right? They are one of these MVNOs, as I mentioned before. They have negotiated to get top billing on Verizon's network. Like, so their data behaves more or less just like you have a real paid Verizon plan from Verizon. Because normally the networks, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, will prioritize their own direct customers' data first and their signals first on the network. And so like, when you're somewhere with like really, really high, high traffic on the network, like think, like a big festival or a concert or something like that, people who, or like, amusement parks and stuff like that, right? Like, where you can have like a lot of people trying to get on the cell phone network all at the same time, you'll notice that the people at those places who don't have plans directly from Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T tend to have issues with their connection. They see worse performance, whereas somebody like me who has a like a Verizon proper plan for my personal cell phone, I never really see all those kinds of issues anywhere, even if I'm at like big large major events and stuff. But the person sitting next to me might be on the Verizon network, with some other service, and have a lot of trouble getting on the internet. So but anyway, the way that they do this is they prioritize their own customers' data. But Mobile X and US Mobile also negotiated to get more or less, like, yes, there is some prioritization that still happens where Verizon always wins in the end. But like, the US Mobile and Mobile X contracts are written with Verizon such that that data does still get prioritized over all the other MVNOs, which is really cool. So, the data prioritization of Mobile X makes it also very, very tempting. And the only thing that makes me hold out is this idea of the latency or the concerns about their custom routing system kind of slowing things down. So, Mobile X, I ruled them out. US Mobile, however, though, they are considered, they are treated as a, top billing on the Verizon network, and they offer Verizon and T-Mobile plans. So that is a definitely good thing to sort of consider. So, okay. So we've eliminated effectively some of these gray rows at the top. We'll just hide those for the time being. This one was a plan that I originally found on Google, but then like in trying to fact check some of because I started with a lot of those just like listicles where it was like the 10 best cell plans or whatever. And I started there and kind of used that as my jumping off point and then did some of my own separate research and stuff. But some of those were, surprise, surprise, not the most reliable. So this was a data point that I didn't trust. And I also don't trust this one. So we'll hide that. We're going to hide these two because they are significantly less than 5. So we'll hide those. There's this AT&T. Goodbye. We're going to eliminate this one because it got hard eliminated for being too big. We're going to eliminate this one. We're going to eliminate this one. Okay. So, one more. We'll eliminate this one. So this basically is who's left in the running. And if anyone knows of any other plans out there that are cheaper or comparable or worthy of consideration here, I would love to hear from you. So it looks like our options are Boost, Mint, US Mobile, T-Mobile themselves. There's another company, another MVNO called Red Pocket, which is also sounds really, really cool. They similarly, it's not a make your own plan, but what you can do is have like a family plan where all of the different lines on the plan can be on different networks, which for somebody trying to do what I'm talking about here, that's a really cool idea, because if I'm going to get 6 cell phones, it would be nice to just have one plan and have to pay one bill and not have to like pay all these separate bills to different companies. So I thought that was really cool. They had a couple other features that I thought made them sound very interesting and worthy of further consideration. They had another plan on here that I eliminated because their family plan though is it starts at 20 gigs. And so again, it's too many gigabytes. I eliminated them. But they do have plans that are 5 gigabytes that you can get. But those plans, despite their other plans being where you can pick your own network, their data only plan to try to save money for 5 gigabytes was AT&T only. So that's why they're marked here as AT&T. But Red Pocket is another one that I think is probably worth people looking into a little bit more. I don't know about their prioritization on any of the networks though. I can't remember what the internet said, but you can look it up, do your own homework. So we got another T-Mobile plan. Here's a Verizon proper plan. We've got another T-Mobile. Google Fi was one that I have. When I told people I was doing this, I got a lot of questions about Google Fi. It's something that is very interesting to a lot of people. I've beef with Google in general because they are so flaky in general about supporting things longer term. I just wouldn't, even if this was the cheapest one, I don't know that I could pull the trigger on it, because it's like as soon as I buy this SIM card, then like the next week is when they're going to be like, hey, we're discontinuing the service, just because it's like Google as a company has ADHD and they can't focus on any one project for any length of time. I'm surprised that like YouTube has survived as long as it has, if I'm being honest. So anything that's not Google search itself, and or Gmail, those are like the two most stable things that they have. And even YouTube does. Sometimes they do kind of experiment with it and like they'll kick it, and break the algorithm or do something, really shake it up, and it makes a lot of people mad. So, yeah, Google. But anyway, Google's on the list. Then we have T-Mobile and then Telna. So Telna is another. So Telna is actually the provider that has the SIM cards that I already have for the modems the USB modems that came with the Teradek. So they used to have a contract with Teradek, and so when you would buy a Teradek kit, like you can buy just the box by itself, but if you buy the kit with the modems and everything, like all as one package, which is what I did, they would include SIM cards from Telna. But they have advantages and disadvantages, but in this case, if you stack them up against everyone else, if you're using less data because they charge by the gigabyte, so it's not like these other plans where you like, even for the prepaid stuff, like or even postpaid, right? So like a typical cell phone plan, you like buy the data in a block per month, and you like have to set that up front. So Telna, you don't have any data paid for ahead of time, and they just charge you after the fact for the data that you use. So you just put money into the pot, and then as you use data, then they just pull out the money in real time, like out of your pool, to cover the costs for the data as you use it. So that's cool, and that's one of their advantages. And so when you get into the cheaper plans, honestly, it's a more affordable choice. There's other shortcomings, but I've already talked for way longer about this tonight than I wanted to, but whatever, we're here. But if we're considering them against other people at this 5 gigabyte rate, they end up effectively being the most expensive. And so it's not, it's here on the list, but probably not worth really spending a lot of time thinking about. So, okay. So these are the options that we have at our disposal. So here in the middle, these columns are kind of the details about the billing for the plan itself. So it's like, how much is each phone by itself if you only get one line, versus like how much do you pay per line if you get 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, up to 5 lines. Yes, I know I said I was considering 6. But I figured that one of those 6 probably will be either one of the hotspots that I already own, or using the modem from Teradek, the USB modem that they have, and just putting a SIM card in that and using that. So I figured, essentially probably I'll end up using one of the SIM cards that I already have and one of the modems that I already have. So I would only need to worry about covering another 5. And so we have the plan cost per line is in these columns, and then some of the services have, they charge per gigabyte on top of the per plan cost, or some other variations on that theme. So anyway, this is their data rate, how much they charge for data as well. This is the size of the quota. So most of these are 5. Sometimes there's like 5.5. This one is 6.5. Here's a 6. But I considered those for the purposes of this conversation. That's basically 5. And so this information is good background, but at the end of the day, really what we care about here is the cost by line, cost per line, the total cost per line, and then the effective cost per gigabyte. And so that brings us to this set of columns here and here. And so this is where I found in each column what was the lowest number, the min, and the max. And so the min in each column is green, the max is red, and then things that are outliers are highlighted in yellow. And so it's like if I sorted by a particular column and like it jumped out as like not being in the correct price sort by sequence, then it got highlighted yellow. Originally, I was looking at what if I get 4 phones from, what if I get 4 phones, like if I keep a Telna card that I already have and the T-Mobile card that I already have. So then I only need 4. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll just get 4 from the same plan. Like, what if I just get 4 phones from Mint or something, right? Or 4 SIM cards from Mint. So I originally started by sorting by 4 lines and trying to do the cheapest to most expensive that way. And so that's why some of these are actually highlighted yellow here, even though they look like they're in sequence, but it depends on how you sort. So these are still weird for different reasons, and I decided that even though in practice I ended up just sorting by the two line number, they're probably worth keeping them highlighted because their pricing model is interesting. So anyway, so that's what's going on over here, and then same thing over here. The green and the red are just the min and max in those columns. So in any case, if you're looking at total cost per line, if you pay annually, like if you, instead of paying month to month, so Boost Mobile is a prepaid service, so you pay monthly more or less, but and you don't need a contract is the thing, right? So you just get it and use it, and or not use it, like, and just go like month to month. But essentially, if you pay up front for an entire year, with Boost Mobile, they give you a discount. So if you use the discount if you buy a whole year in a block, Boost Mobile is always the cheapest Pi line, regardless of how many lines. It's same thing with Mint. Mint also has annual plans that if you pay annually, then it's 15 per line essentially, and this is for their 5 gigabyte plan. Now, right now they have a deal going on where all of their plans are $15, which is a great deal if you're somebody looking for, a cell phone right now. The problem is that deal only applies to like the first 3 months, and then it reverts to the normal pricing model. And I didn't want to build my whole business plan and budget around deals that come and go and may not stick around, right? So if you are, strapped for cash and you need a cell phone now, Mint is a great option. And especially if you do pay up front and you get one of their deals, like, great, good for you. But like, and then, but I wanted to think longer term, and I would rather, like, yes, if I wanted to maximize saving money for my business, then maybe once I get ready to actually pull the trigger on any of these plans, if I actually do, maybe I'll go with whoever is the deal then, right? Because like I don't have to be loyal to any service, and especially because like these aren't phones that I'm going to like use as my personal number. So like I don't care if I don't pay for a month and then like they they cancel the account or whatever. Like, well, that's the joy of prepaid, right? No contract, but also no consequence if you don't pay. Like, it's not gonna like hurt your credit account or something, or your credit rating. So anyway, you can be fickle when you are, and just go with the cheapest when you are doing like a month-to-month kind of prepaid thing. So you can do that. But for the purposes of considering long-term business strategy, I did not want to bank on any deals that are current deals. So these are all plans that appear to be stable plans that had that they were the long-term pricing and stuff like that. Anyway, but so if you pay annually for Mint, their 5 GB plan is $15 a month. I think it's I think it's 25, maybe, or maybe it's 20. If you don't pay annually, like you can do them in 3 month blocks. They don't do month to month. Mint does blocks of like 3 months, 6 months, and 12. But their cheapest was if you do it annually, and is 15. And I didn't even consider the other plans because, again, they were going to be more expensive than some of the other ones that I thought were more worthy of consideration for different reasons, even if they were slightly more expensive. So Mint only gets recorded here as the annual plan, but that's kind of their cheapest one, and it just goes up from there. So if you're looking for something that's not Boost, but you are still willing to do annual, because let's say you want to stick with T-Mobile instead of AT&T, which is the network that Boost uses, then Mint is going to be your people. But Boost Mobile basically has price matched the Mint annual plans with, so you get, like I said, there's an annual discount if you do Boost and you buy a whole year in advance, kind of like Mint, but Boost's price is better. And so Boost's plan, if you go month to month and you don't do an annual plan, you don't buy in blocks, their rate is the same as Mint. So Boost is generally almost always the better deal. The only downside is that they use the AT&T network, and AT&T is very aggressive about deprioritization. And so, as I was mentioning before about like Verizon, like if you don't have a Verizon phone, or if you don't have a Verizon plan from Verizon, and when things get saturated, then they'll slow everybody else down and like make it so that the fast speeds are always reserved for their full direct Verizon customers. AT&T is very, very aggressive about their throttling of data, and so Boost is like the lowest tier on AT&T's ranking. And so like this is really, this is why like Boost Mobile stores appear in a lot of like low income neighborhoods, because they're very, very cheap and very cost effective if you are poor. But it comes with that trade-off of, it's it's the poor people's network, and they just get screwed all the time. So it really sucks. But that's what you get, right? And so you get one of these plans from Boost or Red Pocket, and that's just, you are at the whims, at their mercy. And same thing with Telna. Like right now as we speak, if I look at so I'm on the Tear Deck right now. I am using one of the modems with the Telna card in it that's connected to the AT&T network, and I'm using about 2 megabits per second from my Ethernet, about 2 megabits per second from Verizon, and I'm using 200 kilobits per second on AT&T. Like, that sucks. That's such a low rate. But it's not anything wrong with the modem, and it's not anything wrong with the plan, because I'm paid up. I have plenty of money in my account for Telna, so it's not that I'm getting throttled because like my data ran out. And I have seen these modems go at full speed, but I guess right now, because it's prime time, it's honestly like probably is because Thursday Night Football, and there's probably a lot of people like streaming the Thursday Night Football on their phones on the AT&T network, and so AT&T is having a big data storm right now, and probably will every Thursday night. And so my cell signal is getting deprioritized on their network, and so I'm just getting trickles of data. Like That's hardly enough data even to get the audio out at the rate that I am broadcasting it right now. It's 256 kilobits per second is what I have set right now for my audio, and and my current rate is about 200, so it is below what I would need just to get a packet of audio data out. That's insane to me. So AT&T is, you're on your own. Buy at your own risk for AT&T. It's if you want the benefits of AT&T, because there's definitely also parts of the country where AT&T is a better network. Houston, I think, actually has a pretty good AT&T network overall. They may actually have the best coverage in Houston, for that matter. I can't remember. But yeah, if you don't have an AT&T plan direct from them, it's a bloodbath. It's a bloodbath. But AT&T's lowest plan that they offer, either for tablets or for their phones or anything, is all like, they all start at like 20, and that's way too much data. I pay for a 20 my Verizon plan shared between 3 people is 20 gigabytes or 20 gigabytes per month, and we don't use all of that. And it's me, I am freaking live streaming right now at full data using, it is waiting. It is mostly using the Verizon signal at this point. Just as I was saying the other night, I was saying like the Verizon signal is doing way better than even my Ethernet is. Yeah, it's a beast, and and I do, like, I watch a lot of like when I'm driving to and from work or into downtown and stuff like that, I'm always listening to streaming services. Or sometimes I'll even just play YouTube videos. I'm not watching them, but just like listening to them, like while I'm driving and stuff. So, but technically the video is playing. I use a lot of data, and the rest of my family not so much, but they do use data. And 20 gigabytes is more than I need for 3 people for a month. So I think it's ridiculous that AT&T's own plans start at 20. Like, that's great. Especially even if they do have a rollover plan or something like that. But yeah, it's not cost effective for what we're trying to do here. Unless it was the only modem. If I was going to get 4 phones from one place and I got all 4 of them from AT&T, maybe that would make sense, right? But like, yeah. Consumer cellular. That's a good question. I did look at them, but I didn't write any of their numbers down. So I think they similarly started at either 10 gigabytes or their 5 gigabyte plan, if they had one, was more expensive than everyone else here, so I just didn't write it down. That was on my list, though, that I didn't have more time before tonight to look into. So anyway, all of this to say that I don't know. So AT&T, yes, Boost is the cheapest, but in practical usage, Mint is probably your best bet if you're looking for a cheap phone plan. So for my purposes, if I'm wanting phones from each network, yeah, I'll get a card from Boost. I'll just take my, what I can get. I mean, like, look, I'm already running into this with Telnet as it is. And so, if I'm not going to afford an AT&T one, I might as well just save some money and get the Boost one, right? So, like, it's cheaper at 5 gigabytes. If I'm using less, it's not the cheapest, right? So there's that trade-off too, and we'll come back to that. But so if I'm going to go with a 5 gigabyte plan, AT&T, I guess in this case, Boost is the winner. Mint is going to be a great option for T-Mobile if you're going to do 5 gigabyte. Mint doing the annual plan again, but you sign up for annual, right? And so if you are like me and you if you're my company where I may right now at least not have steady customers, I may not have a use for all of that data every month. Like I'm kind of throwing money out the window. But if I get to a point where I have stable customer base and usage where I really am going to go with a 5 GB plan, Mint is probably the way to go. In terms of Verizon, US Mobile, like I was mentioning before, they are priority on the Verizon network, not as high as Verizon customers, but higher than everyone else. So you don't run into quite as many issues with the data getting slowed down like what we're talking about right now. And it's a good rate. It's a good rate. So yeah, not all things considered, this is not bad. So US Mobile is probably my option that I would go for if you're going to do something with Verizon. Now, the answers do change again if you are going, at scale. Again, if I was going to go up to all five from one provider or something like that, the answers change slightly. Because look, if you were to get 4 phones, it is actually if you even go up to 3 phones. If I were to get 3 phones, on a Verizon network, it's actually cheaper to go with Verizon proper. It's the way that their model is you pay out the wazoo for the first line, and then every additional line on top of that is very cheap. So it's $10 for each additional phone on the plan. Or I say phone. This is a data only plan. It's like a tablet plan. But it's $40 for the first line, but then it's only $10 per line after that. So at scale, if you're doing something big and corporate, this makes more sense to just go with Verizon proper, and you're going to get the priority on the network. So if I was going to get 4 phones all from the same place and I wanted to go Verizon, I would go with Verizon proper probably. So this is again, your model may vary. So this is all a very, very specific use case. So I'm not talking about making recommendations for you and your family buying cell phones or anything like that. But I mean, you can use this information for that. But for my very specific use cases, this is how I kind of arrived at the conclusions that I did. I hid some of those other rows, so not it's missing some of the, so I don't have all the Google Fi plans listed out now, but I had them on the screen originally. So so this is basically where we are. I did consider, okay, so what if I stick with the card? So I have the T-Mobile plan that I mentioned before. I have a 2 GB per month allowance there already, and then you can get 3 GB 30-day passes. So you can buy it at the beginning of the month and it'll last for the whole month. But that way, like, I'll just sustain on only 2 GB, and then maybe if I have a month where like I have extra events or something and I need the extra data, then I could pay for the extra 3 GB plan on top of that, just on an as needed basis. That is an option, but it is significantly more expensive to do this and get a total of 5 GB by just doing the 2 and then add 3 later, compared to just getting a 5 GB plan. So it's how often do you think that this would happen, right? So that's the consideration you'd have to make. And then there's also, that, as I mentioned before, what you can do is you can get their like half gigabyte plan, as the just keep the line alive, and that's $5. So just $5 a month just to like keep the connection and keep the account alive, which is what I had done up until I started really streaming again, or not again, like actually streaming and using this signal. So I switched it to the 2 GB for now, on the T-Mobile plan. But if I needed a 5 GB pass, that's significantly more expensive. Well, I say that. I guess it's significantly more like at scale. But it is more expensive than just getting the 2 GB and getting the 3-day pass. Um, Both of which are more expensive than just getting a 5 GB plan per month. So it's, how often do you think you need the extra data? That's hard to say. That's hard to say. You got to read that crystal ball, and you have to be aggressive about your marketing as a business. And I don't know if I can do that. So all of this is a lot of like what ifing, right? So how do we make sense of this? So I've figured out, okay, so these are the scenarios that we might consider. There's the current, what I'm doing right now. This is my baseline cost for the way that I've got my account set up now. And then there's the consideration for what would actually be the cheapest if I were to go with 5 GB, doing 2 streams a month with three cell plans. So this is kind of the streamlined version of what I have right now. That is this set of columns. And then we have 2 streams a month with 6 phones. And then finally doing 5 streams a month. So this would be every single week having something, and then using 6 phones for that. I originally had in here also doing 5 streams a month with only 3 phones, and that's just 5 GB doesn't cut it. You need a bigger data plan. You just use so much more data, and I don't know that I would even trust that your cell phone, would reliably get that signal out. So, so this is the different state of the world. So there's the cost for the restreaming service is the same no matter what, because they just pay one annual fee for splitting out the signal to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. The Teradek Core service we talked about before, that's also kind of a fixed cost depending on the number of streams. So, it's the same price for all of these, and then it jumps up if I end up going to 5, a weekly thing. But there you go. So then there is, I did this stupidly over here. I didn't do this stupidly. I forgot how I set this up. So this row is for the hotspot that I already have for T-Mobile. So this is assuming that I just stick with T-Mobile proper for that. So here, again, like I said, now essentially stand by. Oh, okay. Never mind. I thought something was going on. I have the 2 GB plan, and then if I needed to go up to 5, then I would get the 3 GB pass. So that's not actually what I've done right now, but that's effectively what I have right now, in this, considering this 5 GB scenario. So then these are the different options for what I might choose for those different configurations. So then down here we have, well, what are the remaining 5 other things that I would do? So what I have right now is I have 2 SIM cards with Telna in both of the AT&T modems that came with the router. And I say AT&T modem because effectively these modems only work on the AT&T network. They used to work on T-Mobile. T-Mobile has banned them from their network now, so they basically are only AT&T. Allegedly, you can use them with Verizon, but I know they work with AT&T, and I just don't want to put anything in them that isn't. I don't want to spend money on something that I don't know for sure is going to work. So I'm effectively treating them as AT&T only. I have to stick with AT&T if I'm going to use the existing modems. So this is what I have right now, is I have 2 of these SIM cards from Telna. So then this would be the cost there. So if we go to, you'll see that actually if I go to the 2 streams but splitting it out among 6 signals, it's actually cheaper to stick with the Telna plan, because of the way that they just pay as you go. But I would only use one of the SIM cards from them for that. It's complicated why. I'm not going to get into it. But I would at least go down to only one SIM card with Telna, but I would just continue to use Telna if I'm only needing 2 GB, either in a 6 cell plan or if I were to. I should have really just made a column for like, what if I do 2 streams or what if I only do 1 stream at 2 GB or something like that. So maybe I'll go make that column to just like figure out something like that. But again, this is kind of the idealized like worst case scenarios, right? I do something every other week, or I do something every week. So fully busy like business schedule. I keep I keep hearing my robot vacuum trying to talk to me, but I don't have any error messages on my phone, so I don't know what's going on. I don't want to get up. I'm gonna take another break in about 5 minutes, then I'll go check on what it's doing. But it's probably broken. It's stuck on something. It always gets stuck on something. So so these are the options there. So yeah, if you're only doing 2 GB, Telna is cheaper. But yeah, like I said, I didn't want to go all in on Telna, so I'm gonna swap out one of those. And so essentially, if I'm not using Telna for the AT&T one, it's gonna be Boost, as I mentioned before. So just, it is what it is. The deprioritization sucks, but it is what it is. So it's either I get, in this case, if I'm only doing 3 cell signals, if I'm just doing the bare minimum 3 cell signals, but still doing the 5 GB, I'll just get rid of the Telna cards entirely, go all in on Boost, and just get 1 card from Boost. In the 6 phone scenario, I still have one AT&T covered by Telna, and then the second one is just 1 phone from Boost. In the 5 streams a month scenario, so this is I'm doing a stream every week worst case scenario, but I'm splitting it out among 6. I get 2 SIM cards from Boost. I just get rid of Telna entirely and replace both Telnas entirely with the Boost. So that's the plan there. For Verizon, it's all about the US mobile here. So for the Verizon coverage, we get a US mobile Verizon card, a single one for the 3 cellular configuration, and then and then for the 6 cellular plans, I get 2 cards from US Mobile, Verizon, but I do different plans depending on if I'm doing the 2 GB or the 5 GB here. So, but both of the Verizon ones would come from US Mobile. Mint I originally had. Oh no, I did end up using them. So yeah, I was like, I'll have 1 T-Mobile here from T-Mobile proper, and then the second one will be a Mint in this configuration here. However, if I'm in the I only need 2 GB, if I'm really gonna scale things back scenario, then I can use the US Mobile T-Mobile SIM card instead, and it's going to be much cheaper than T-Mobile's own plans. However, unlike Verizon, where they have priority on the Verizon network, for T-Mobile they don't necessarily. So again, risking a little bit of deprioritization of the data here, and getting my data slowed down a little bit. But I mean, in this scenario, I'm already looking at, I'm going to split out my data among 6 cell signals, and that's really buying you that's a big insurance policy for what it is. So it's spreading it out so you don't have to rely on all of the data coming from one place. And you can probably get by with even throttled data on all of these. But we're at least protected by having at least 1 proper T-Mobile here. And then we have the Verizon ones from US Mobile, which are prioritized in the Verizon network. So there's at least half of the phones that would have priority on their respective networks, um, or at least SIM cards, I should say. Cause I keep saying phone, but they may not actually be physical phones. It could be something else, but SIM cards from these places. Um, so this one again could probably get by with the prioritized network on half of the phones or half of the plans. So anyway, total cost. So looking at the cost per month first, and then I just realized these numbers are real small, and I'm so sorry. I meant to zoom in on this page, and then I did not. So sorry about that. I just glanced up at the stream preview and was like, that is utterly unreadable. But I've been talking through what I'm pointing at here, so I guess I could put my face back on the screen too. Yeah, that's my face. I'm not covering any of the numbers now. Currently, if I were to keep going at the rate I'm going with the plan that I have now, even just doing 2 streams a month, so that's not even what I'm actually doing right now, right? Because like right now, when I'm doing this stream every week, that's borderline 4 to 5 streams a month. And if I'm doing them with some cellular component, then it's actually even more than this is what I'm doing right now. So even here now in the short term, while I'm doing this Twitch streaming happy fun time experiment that we've been doing here, I probably need to switch something up because there are cheaper options. So this is the current plan. And then, so this is per month, and then this would be if I had the same plan for a whole year, right? So annualized. So this is about $1,700 a year for this configuration. Not chump change. But if you only do 2 streams a month with 3 cellular phones or 3 cellular plans at 5 gigabytes, so whatever. Yeah, so doing 2 events a month with only 3 phones at 5 gigabytes. That's actually the cheapest configuration, just because it's the overhead of paying for a whole phone plan, and then you may not even use it every single month. So this is the cheapest option. Maybe not the insurance policy one. So like as I'm starting out, maybe this is where I start out. And then when I start having more regular customers and have more income and I can have a little more of a buffer, then maybe I jump up to one of these 6 cellular plans, where it's a little bit more expensive, but definitely cheaper than what I've got now. So, so the 2 streams a month with 3 phones at 5 gigabytes for those plans, it's $83 a month. It comes out to just under $1,000 a year. That's a good number. I would say this is awesome. And then it goes up to 109, so about one, and rounding up again because this is not including taxes and fees and stuff, so it probably goes up to add another like 10 15 onto any of these numbers for the monthly, and then you have to incorporate that into the annualized bit. But anyway, so monthly here, this one would be about 110, so maybe 125 with fees and taxes and stuff. Going up to 6 cell with 5 streams, like doing this every week though, this jumps up to 150 a month, and I just can't find a way to get that price down anymore. So if I were doing real weekly things, I would have to be in it for the long haul, and this is actually more expensive than what I'm doing now, but it's but the idea is that the plan that I have now is not necessarily, we know already that this is not the sustainable one from a business perspective. And so if I were to increase my stream throughput and had income on these projects, and I actually was doing it every week, this might be more cost effective, but it's definitely way more expensive. So that's the big jump. So that's the breakdown for what I have right now. And so yeah, Cell phones. I really didn't want to spend the whole hour talking about this, but I did. Sorry. But I think this is good. I was fascinated by this, putting this together. It's really interesting data, just to see what all plans are out there, and then kind of some of these things were very surprising to me, and some of these companies I'd never heard of, like the U.S. Mobile I'd never heard of. Mobile X, really cool. Really cool stuff. Uh, if this is something that you're considering, if you were watching this from the perspective of you're also in the future trying to start your own streaming business, and need to consider cellular plans, um, then or if you are somebody who is also, looking for a cheaper cell phone plan on this like 5 GB sort of um, space for yourself or for your family, for a family plan or something. This is really good information. But I would say you can look on Reddit under, it's like Reddit. The Reddit is no contract, and so they have a lot of information there on phone plans that don't require contracts. And I'm not against contracts. The thing is that when you get a contract plan from any of the cell phone providers, it's always at least twice as expensive as any of their prepaid plans. And that's because often, like even within the network, like on the Verizon network, actually Verizon maybe not the best example. Maybe they are. It used to be, it used to be that from Verizon that the full like contract postpaid customers, as they call them, um, are the highest priority on the network, and then the prepaid people are underneath them. So again, like when it gets into the data throttling stuff, then the prepaid people get penalized. So you're paying for the premium data, the premium, rates and stuff, data rates, and the priority access on the network with the contract plans. They also have all the extra bonus things, like you get a free subscription to HBO Max or something like that, right? So there's a lot of these bundled services that you can get now as part of these full postpaid, full up postpaid plans. There's a lot of benefits to them that are associated with it, but like if you don't need that or don't want that, like why pay for it, right? So this has kind of actually been eye-opening for me personally, and thinking about like, well, what am I paying for, right? Because I have a postpaid plan with Verizon, and I have a good price from them, because I even have a number of discounts from the fact that my family has had this account with them for, you know, as long as I've been alive almost, because I inherited this uh, plan. Essentially, I'm on the same cell phone plan as where it started with my grandparents. So they were one of the first people to have cell phones. So we've had this plan forever. So we've got the loyalty discount, and then also like I have a discount through my employer and stuff like that. So I have a pretty good rate, all things considered. My postpaid plan is probably the cheapest that anybody out there is paying. Honestly, if we compared notes, I probably have the best price of anybody I know with a Verizon contract. But I'm still paying a lot for it, and I don't use a lot of those other perks. And so it's worth considering, like, should have switched to a prepaid plan or something like that. Maybe. I don't know. I'll probably just stick with what I have for my personal stuff for now. I can't afford it, but like if money got tight, and it does sometimes, it's probably something to consider. So prepaid plans are interesting. So if that's something that you need to look into or want to look more into, really look at like no contract on Reddit. There's some really good information there where they have like pinned posts talking about the priority stuff on the networks and stuff, which was very enlightening to me to understand how that works and like what services get priority on what networks and stuff. And then yeah, just price match. It's not hard to do, and there are deals out there that again I did not consider for the purposes of this discussion, but there are better deals than what I have documented now, even at the 5 GB rate. that I didn't include in here. So, all right. Rather than taking a break because I've went long on the first segment and the second one, I'm just probably going to call it here. Also, Craig is asleep at my feet, and so I think he's ready to cuddle. Well, he's always ready to cuddle though. He's the cuddliest cat in the world. So I think we're gonna call it a night here, and I will get back into, no kidding, the technical details again next week about this stuff. I really want to get into actually like building the rack and like talking about the connecting up all the pieces and what I want to put into it. But an important part of that is the business component of this too. And that's really what this was kind of the focus of tonight, which is, again, wasn't my original plan, but here we are. Okay. Any comments or questions from people? You're welcome to always leave comments here. Or, you know, reach out to me on all of the different platforms of, well, I mean, I guess I only check the Twitch chat when I'm doing streams or like before the stream. So if you leave a message there, I won't see it. But if you leave me a comment on Facebook or on YouTube on the video there, then I can try to respond and see what I have to offer you. But anyway, yeah, so that's going to do it for us for now. So I hope everyone has a good evening and then enjoyed my rambling about cell phones for a few hours. I thought this was good time. So educational. All right, we'll call it there. So everyone have a good night. And we'll see you. Yes. Let me double check. I need to double check if I am actually even gonna be able to do this stream next week. Because I think I had a conflict. Maybe ? I probably will be on the stream next week. The week after, I will not. I will be on vacation, and so I'm not gonna do the stream from my vacation. So, but I think I'll be here next week. If you don't see an event posted sometime next week, then I guess I'm not doing it. But anyway, yeah. Thanks. Thank you for the comment. So, all right. Everyone have a good night. I'll see you next week probably. Bye.